18. A few minutes later, when Katherine found the courage to move again, she ran to the window to see if she could spot them. But both nuns were long gone. She couldn't even make out their footsteps in the gravel. All that was outside were deep puddles of muddy water. Katherine raised her hand to the glass in despair and let it rest there for a few moments, willing with all her might, if there was a God, that he would hear her pleas to save Sister Sorcia. She bit down on her fist to try to quiet the sobs that wouldn't cease. Her breathing had become so ragged, the window she was leaning on began to fog up. She could only see blurred shapes now when she looked outside. She sniffed and used her apron to wipe her nose. She looked around the room in despair. What was she to do now? Was she to just carry on as if something horrific wasn't happening to Sister Sorcia right now? Just go back to her chores? The pile of laundry she'd been tackling was long forgotten, and the water was now stone cold. She moved over to the taps to turn them off before the sinks were overfilled. She looked up to the heavens, searching for answers. She had once again tried to do right, both by Sorcia and herself, and in every possible way had failed. She didn't know what was going to happen to Sister Sorcia, but it was clear that there was very little that Sister Nora was unwilling to do. The very thought made her fearful, and her hands started to feel clammy. As she returned to her work, Katherine trod on something soft. She peered down. Sister Sorcia's notes! Still sniffling, Katherine bent down to retrieve the ball of papers and sank down on her stool to unfold them. After scanning her eyes over the first few words, she soon realized that Sister Sorcia had been trying to convey her story to Katherine. Why she had been so afraid of Sister Nora, and how she ended up with her tongue as it was. Katherine struggled to figure out which piece of paper she was meant to start with, as some of the sentences were difficult to decipher. Sister Sorcia's handwriting was more of an awkward cursive scrawl rather than actual writing, so Katherine had to hold the pieces of paper up to the light to try to distinguish the words. I knew what she was doing was wrong. I stumbled across her one evening 2 summers ago. I was up in the gallery saying the rosary before my nightly duties when I heard a commotion down below. It frightened me at first, so I ducked down and hid by the pew. But as the noises got more aggressive, I slipped down towards the front so I was able to see what was happening while still being safely hidden from whoever was down there. It was cowardly of me to hide, and I know that God will punish me for that when my time comes. But judging by what I saw next, God has bigger problems protecting those in the orphanage than he does with making me attest to my cowardice. There was a young girl who had only just come to us, a real slip of a girl who was trying to swing her fist at Sister Nora, but it was an extremely unfair fight because the girl was so weak. I'm not sure how it started, but it was chaotic. Pews had toppled over, and the young girl was trying to crawl away. She was completely covered in blood, whereas Nora was unscathed by their altercation. Her habit wasn't even tousled. Sister Nora was like a vicious animal. She stalked after the girl like an African lion hunting its prey, and when she managed to reach her on the altar steps, she slashed at and bashed the girl until she went limp. I must have made a startled noise from the gallery, because the next thing I knew, everything was quiet, and Sister Nora was standing over me. I don't even know how she managed to get up there so fast. She was like a phantom. Her eyes wide and unyielding, and she had this calculated yet manic expression on her face. It wasn't human. I've always believed in the existence of the devil, but I had never once thought that the devil would walk among us here in this consecrated place, destroying everything we hold sacred. I didn't know what to do, so I raised my own crucifix and began to pray, but Sister Nora only laughed at me. She cut out my tongue to stop me from ever speaking of it. Truth be told, I probably wouldn't have spoken about it even if I could. If she had done that to a defenseless little child, then God only knows what she would do to me if I were to speak out against her atrocities. She still has it, my tongue. She keeps it in that old custodia that she has on the shelf in her office. It's just a shriveled piece of flesh now, but every now and then she calls me in to look at it, to remind me of what will happen if I go against her. That's why I'm so afraid of her. She isn't, she, like you and I. She is something dark and savage. She is the devil reincarnate. I am sure of it, and that crucifix of hers, the curse of the original sin it bears, it gives her a power beyond any other. Catherine didn't know why she was surprised by what she had read. She had seen the contents of Father Michael's journals and experienced the sadistic side of Sister Nora herself, but reading Sister Sorcha's stories somehow felt different. It was easy for her to distance herself from the gory details within the journals because she had never met the girl. However, reading the details of Sorcha's desperate tale and realizing the extent of her fear tugged at Catherine's heartstrings. She found it impossible to distance herself any more. Once again, she started to blame herself for having failed to protect the nun from Nora's wrath, especially after the agony she had already experienced. She had made the vital error of letting her guard down, and Sister Sorcha would ultimately pay the price. Catherine's jaw tightened as she clenched her fists. How could I have been so stupid? She thought. Catherine started to pace the room, her movements growing more agitated as the reality of the heart-wrenching situation sank in. Her only friend was gone. She hoped that Sister Nora would make it quick, that she wouldn't prolong the anguish for Sister Sorcha. She didn't deserve to be subjected to pain on her account. Catherine let the slips of paper fall from her hands into the basin of water as the bubbles consumed them, destroying the horrific words and her first real glimpse into Sister Sorcha's life in the process. Sister Nora will pay for this, she thought. I don't know how, but she will answer to me for this.